Imagine you're a billionaire CEO striding through the gleaming lobby of your New York skyscraper empire when you freeze at the sight of a woman mopping the floors your childhood sweetheart from a small town in rural America, now reduced to cleaning for a living. 20 years ago, you shared dreams and promises under the stars. Now fate reunites you in the most unexpected way. What secrets from the past will surface? Can old love survive? Betrayal class divides corporate scandals and the weight of time. But before we dive into this heartwarming story of rediscovery, regret, and redemption, please subscribe to stay updated with more touching family tales. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Join us to see if Alexander Vaughn and Sophia Hayes can bridge the worlds between them, or if some loves are meant to stay in the past. The morning sun streamed through the expansive windows of Vaughn Industries, casting a golden glow on the sleek glass and steel structure that towered over the New York City skyline. At 38, Alexander Vaughn had achieved everything a man could desire, a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. He'd built from the ground up a luxurious penthouse overlooking Central Park and the unwavering respect of the business elite. Alexander adjusted his custom-tailored Italian suit as he stepped out of his private elevator. His assistant Margaret approached immediately, tablet in hand. "Good morning, Mr. Vaughn. The board is waiting in the conference room, and the new cleaning company started today. I've already received complaints about disruptions to the work environment." Alexander nodded absently. "Tell the board I'll be there in 5 minutes. As for the cleaning staff, ensure they understand our protocols." As he walked through the pristine lobby of his company headquarters, his mind was laser-focused on the meeting ahead. The acquisition of a smaller tech firm was nearly complete, adding yet another triumph to his impressive portfolio. Everything was unfolding perfectly, just as he'd meticulously planned his life until he saw her. Time seemed to halt as Alexander froze mid-stride. There, kneeling on the marble floor with a cleaning cloth in hand, was a woman he'd recognize anywhere, Sophia Hayes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face, though marked by the passage of years, still held the gentle features he remembered from 2 decades ago. She wore a gray uniform, emblazoned with the cleaning company's logo, methodically wiping the floor, completely unaware of his presence. "It can't be," he whispered to himself. Memories surged like a tidal wave. Summer nights under the stars in their small hometown of Willow Creek, promises whispered beside the old oak tree at their high school, the tearful goodbye when he left for college on a full scholarship. They had been so young, so deeply in love with their entire lives, stretching out before them. Margaret cleared her throat. "Mr. Vaughn, the board is waiting." But Alexander couldn't move. His eyes remained locked on Sophia, his Sophia now on her hands and knees, scrubbing the floors of his empire. As if sensing his gaze, Sophia looked up. For a brief instant, their eyes met. Recognition dawned on her face, followed by shock, then what appeared to be pain. She quickly averted her gaze and focused intensely on her work. "Margaret, who hired the new cleaning company?" Alexander asked, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. "Operations did last month, budget cuts, you know. You approved it." Margaret looked puzzled. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong." Alexander straightened his tie. "Tell the board I need to reschedule. Something urgent has come up." Margaret's eyes widened in surprise. Alexander Vaughn never rescheduled board meetings, but she nodded and hurried away. Alexander took a deep breath and approached Sophia, who was still determinedly scrubbing the floor, her back to him. "Sophia," he said, his voice soft and uncertain. She stiffened, but didn't look up. "I'm almost finished here, sir. I won't be in your way much longer." The formality in her tone felt like a blow to his gut. "Sophia, it's me, Alexander." Slowly, she stood and faced him. Up close, he could see the fine lines around her eyes, the weariness etched into her features, but her deep brown eyes were exactly as he remembered. "I know who you are, Mr. Vaughn," she said, her voice controlled and professional. "Everyone in this building knows who you are." "I can't believe it's you. After all these years," he said, wanting to reach out to touch her arm and confirm she was real. But something in her expression held him back. 20 years, she replied flatly. "It's been 20 years. A young supervisor from the cleaning company approached. "Is there a problem here, Ms. Hayes, Mr. Vaughn?" Sophia quickly shook her head. "No problem. I was just finishing up." "Ms. Hayes," Alexander couldn't help asking, feeling a strange tightness in his chest. "I never married," she corrected, still avoiding his eyes. The supervisor glanced between them, confused by the tension. "Ms. Hayes is one of our best employees, Mr. Vaughn. I assure you any disruption will be minimal." Alexander barely heard him. "Could you give us a moment, please?" he asked, not taking his eyes off Sophia. The supervisor nodded and walked away. For a moment, they stood in silence amid the bustling lobby, yet somehow isolated in their own bubble. "What happened, Sophia?" Alexander finally asked. Why are you working as a cleaner?" She finished the sentence for him, a flash of defiance in her eyes. "Not everyone gets to fulfill their dreams, Alexander. Some of us have to do what we can to survive." The bitterness in her voice hit him hard. Alexander felt a wave of shame. "I tried to find you, you know. After my first year away, I came back to Willow Creek, but your mother said you'd moved." "My mother died, Alexander, 6 months after you left." Her voice cracked slightly. "I had to sell the house to pay her medical bills. There was nothing left for college." Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him. "I didn't know. I'm so sorry, Sophia. If I had known, I would have—" "What helped me send money?" she interrupted. "It doesn't matter now." She began gathering her cleaning supplies. "I need to finish my work. Some of us don't have the luxury of rescheduling meetings." As she turned to leave, Alexander gently caught her arm. "Please, can we talk after work, maybe?" Sophia looked down at his hand, and he quickly released her. "I can't believe it's you. After all these years," he repeated, his voice pleading. For a brief moment, something like the old Sophia flickered in her eyes, but it vanished behind a wall of caution. "I get off at 6, he's yours," she finally said. "There's a coffee shop across the street." "I'll be there," Alexander promised, trying to contain the surge of hope. Sophia nodded curtly and walked away, leaving Alexander standing alone in his grand lobby, suddenly feeling like the impressive architecture was nothing but an empty shell. What would you do if you ran into your first love after 20 years in the most unexpected place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories of surprise reunions. The next morning, Alexander arrived at his office earlier than usual. He had barely slept, his mind replaying his conversation with Sophia over and over. "Margaret, I need information on our cleaning service contract," he said as his assistant walked in. Margaret looked surprised, but didn't question him. "I'll have it on your desk in an hour, and I need to make some changes to my schedule. Clear my evenings for the next week, all of them." "But sir, you have the charity gala tomorrow and the meeting with the Japanese investors on Thursday evening." "Reschedule what you can. Send my apologies for the rest." Alexander's tone left no room for discussion. Throughout the morning, Alexander found himself repeatedly glancing at the lobby through his office windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of Sophia, but she was nowhere to be seen. By afternoon, Margaret had provided the information he requested. The cleaning company Budget Commercial Cleaning Services was a small operation that primarily employed people with limited education or employment history, people who needed a second chance. Alexander made a few calls and arranged to meet with the owner, not to complain, but to learn more about their employee structure, and specifically about one employee in particular. As evening approached, Alexander found himself walking through the building, making his way to the lower floors, where the cleaning staff would be preparing to start their shift. He felt oddly nervous, like a teenager again. He found Sophia in a small break room putting on her work gloves. Her hair was tied back, and she looked tired. "Alexander," she said, clearly surprised. "What are you doing down here?" A few other cleaners looked up, curious about the well-dressed man who seemed out of place. "I was hoping to catch you before your shift," he said. "About dinner. Are you free tomorrow night?" Sophia glanced at her co-workers who were pretending not to listen. "I have a double shift tomorrow. Thursday would work better." "Thursday it is." He smiled, aware of the eyes on them. "I'll pick you up at 7. Where should I meet you?" Sophia hesitated, uncomfortable with the idea of him coming to her home. "I'll meet you somewhere." "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise, but nothing too fancy, I promise." He could see she was worried about fitting in at one of the high-end restaurants he usually frequented. "I don't like surprises," she said flatly. Alexander smiled. "You used to." A flicker of the old Sophia appeared in her eyes. "Fine, but nothing extravagant. I'll meet you at the coffee shop at 7. As she turned back to her preparations, Alexander called after her. "Sophia, I never forgot you. Not for a single day." She didn't respond, but he saw her pause briefly before continuing. Alexander left, aware of the whispers behind him. Back in his office, he stared out at the city skyline, watching as buildings lit up against the darkening sky. For 20 years, he had pursued success with single-minded determination, believing it would fill the void Sophia had left. Now she was back, and nothing else seemed to matter. But winning her trust wouldn't be easy. The wall she had built around her heart was strong, reinforced by years of struggle and disappointment. Breaking through would require more than charm or grand gestures. It would require proving that this time he wouldn't walk away. As the night fell over the city, Alexander made a silent promise to himself and to the memory of what they once shared. This time, he would get it right. This time he would fight for what truly mattered, because some loves deserved a second chance, and theirs interrupted but never truly ended was definitely one of them. Have you ever reconnected with someone from your past and felt that old spark? Like, if this resonates with you, and subscribe for more stories of second chances and enduring love. Thursday evening arrived faster than Sophia expected. Standing in front of her small bathroom mirror, she studied her reflection with critical eyes. She had changed outfits 3 times already, unsure what was appropriate for dinner with a billionaire, even if he had promised nothing fancy. She finally settled on a simple navy blue dress she'd bought years ago for a job interview. It wasn't new or expensive, but it was the nicest thing she owned. Her apartment was tiny, located in one of the less desirable neighborhoods of the city. The building was old, with peeling paint and unreliable heating, but it was what she could afford on her salary. As she applied a touch of lipstick, her phone rang. It was her friend and neighbor, Rita. "So you're really going through with this date with Mr. Moneybags?" Rita asked without preamble. "It's not a date," Sophia insisted. "It's just clearing the air. And don't call him that." Rita sighed. "Honey, I've known you for 5 years and I've never seen you this worked up over clearing the air. This guy obviously meant something to you." "That was a long time ago," Sophia said, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. "Just be careful. Men like him don't usually cross the tracks to our side of town unless they want something. Alexander isn't like that." Sophia found herself defending him, then wondered why she felt so certain after all these years. After hanging up, Sophia grabbed her worn purse and jacket. As she locked her apartment door, she tried to ignore the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. It was just dinner, nothing more. Alexander arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, nervously checking his watch every few minutes. He had spent hours planning this evening, wanting everything to be perfect without being overwhelming. He had chosen to wear casual clothes again. Dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt that he remembered Sophia once saying matched his eyes. When she walked through the door at exactly 700, Alexander felt his breath catch. She wasn't dressed extravagantly, just a simple blue dress that highlighted her natural beauty. But to him, she outshone every woman he'd dated in the past 20 years. "You look beautiful," he said as she approached. Sophia offered a small smile. "Thank you. So where are we going?" "It's not far," Alexander assured her. "We can walk if that's okay." As they stepped outside, Sophia noticed a sleek black car parked nearby, a driver standing attentively beside it. "I thought we were walking." "We are," he said. "The car's just for later if you need it." They walked side by side, maintaining a careful distance between them. The early evening air was cool but pleasant. Alexander led them away from the busier streets toward a quieter neighborhood. "I hope you still like Italian food," he said as they turned a corner. "I do," she nodded. "Some things don't change." They arrived at a small, unassuming restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a florist. The sign simply read, "Marco's." "This place has been here for over 40 years, Alexander explained as he held the door open for her. "The owner, Marco, makes everything from scratch. Best pasta in the city, but it's still a neighborhood secret." Inside the restaurant was warm and inviting with checkered tablecloths and soft lighting. An older man with a thick Italian accent greeted Alexander like an old friend. "Alexander, it's been too long." The man embraced him warmly. "Marco, this is Sophia, an old friend." Marco's eyes twinkled as he looked between them. "Ah, a special friend, I see. Come, I have your table ready." He led them to a quiet corner booth, partially secluded by a wooden partition covered in ivy. It was intimate, without being too romantic, the perfect balance. "How do you know this place?" Sophia asked after they were seated. "It doesn't seem like your usual style." Alexander smiled. "I found it during my first year in the city when I was just starting out. I couldn't afford anything fancy, but I wanted good food. Marco let me wash dishes when I couldn't pay the bill one night." Sophia looked surprised. "You washed dishes?" "For almost 6 months, Alexander admitted. "I was broke, trying to get my first business off the ground. Marco fed me and let me work it off. When things finally took off, I tried to buy the restaurant for him, but he refused. Said some things weren't meant to be businesses, they were meant to be homes." Something in Sophia's expression softened. This was a side of Alexander she hadn't expected, a reminder of the boy she once knew before he became the billionaire businessman. Their conversation flowed more easily as dinner progressed. They shared memories of their hometown, carefully avoiding the painful subject of their separation. Sophia found herself laughing as Alexander recounted stories of his early business failures. "So there I was," he continued, "trying to convince this investor that my software was revolutionary when the entire system crashed. Complete blackout. He just got up and walked out without a word." Sophia couldn't help smiling. "But you obviously bounced back." "Eventually," Alexander nodded. "After about a dozen more failures. Success didn't happen overnight, despite what the magazines say." As they finished their main course, Sophia found herself relaxing more than she had in years. There was something comforting about being with someone who knew her before life had hardened her. "Tell me about your classes," Alexander said, as Marco brought them dessert homemade tiramisu that he insisted they try. Sophia hesitated. "It's nothing exciting, just basic business courses at the community college. I'm trying to get an associate's degree, maybe move into office work eventually." "That's not nothing," Alexander said seriously. "That's determination. I admire that." Sophia looked down at her dessert. "It's taking forever. 1 or 2 classes per semester is all I can manage with my work schedule. At this rate, I'll graduate when I'm 50. "But you'll graduate," Alexander said softly. "That's what matters." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment the years between them seemed to disappear. Sophia was the first to look away. "Why did you really want to have dinner with me, Alexander?" she asked, her voice quiet but direct. "Is it guilt? Curiosity?" Alexander leaned forward. "Honestly, when I saw you in my building, it felt like the universe was giving me a second chance. All these years I've been successful by every standard except the one that mattered. I've never been as happy as I was when we were together." Sophia's eyes widened at his candor. This wasn't what she had expected. She had prepared for polite conversation, maybe some nostalgic reminiscing, not this raw honesty. "It's too much," she finally said. "You can't just walk back into my life after 20 years and expect things to pick up where we left off." "I don't," Alexander assured her. "I know it's not that simple, but I'm asking for a chance, Sophia. A chance to get to know the woman you've become, and for you to know who I am now." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Sophia checked it and frowned. "I have to take this. It's my supervisor from work." She stepped away from the table to answer. Alexander watched as her expression grew increasingly concerned. When she returned, her face was pale. "What's wrong?" he asked. "That was Mike from work. There's been a change in the cleaning company's contract with your building. Starting next week, they're bringing in a different crew. Our team is being reassigned to other buildings." She looked directly at him, her eyes accusing. "Did you do this?" Alexander looked genuinely confused. "No, of course not. I had nothing to do with that." "Really? Because it seems like quite a coincidence that after 20 years of nothing, you reappear in my life, and suddenly my job changes." "Sophia, I swear I didn't do this. In fact, I met with the cleaning company owner yesterday to make sure your position was secure." She stared at him, trying to determine if he was telling the truth. "Then who did?" Alexander thought for a moment, a suspicion forming. "My brother Ethan. He oversees operations while I handle the strategic side of the business. He must have made the decision." "Your brother?" Sophia asked. "Why would he do that?" Alexander's expression darkened. "Because he saw us talking. Ethan has always been protective of my image. He probably thinks having a personal connection to a member of the cleaning staff is inappropriate." Sophia's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "So I'm an embarrassment to your image now. This is exactly why this dinner was a mistake." "No, Sophia, that's not what I meant. Ethan is wrong. I'll fix this. I promise." But Sophia was already gathering her purse. "I don't need you to fix anything. I've been taking care of myself for 20 years without your help." As she stood to leave, Alexander gently caught her hand. "Please don't go. Not like this." For a moment, she hesitated, the warmth of his hand triggering memories of another time. Then she pulled away. "Goodbye, Alexander." She walked out of the restaurant, leaving Alexander staring after her. His heart heavy with the realization that the past wasn't the only obstacle between them. The present, his wealth, her struggles, his position, her pride created a chasm perhaps too wide to cross. If you've ever felt the sting of class differences in a relationship, share your experiences in the comments below. Hit that like button if you're rooting for Alexander and Sophia, and subscribe for more tales of love overcoming obstacles. The following morning, Alexander stormed into his brother's office without knocking. Ethan Vaughn looked up from his computer, surprised by the interruption. "We need to talk." Alexander said, his voice controlled but tight with anger. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a slight smile on his face. About what, the Miller acquisition? Because I've already... About the cleaning contract, Alexander interrupted. Why did you change the crew assignment? Ethan's expression shifted to practiced innocence. It was a simple business decision. The current team wasn't meeting our standards. That's not true, and you know it, Alexander said, placing his hands on his brother's desk and leaning forward. This is about Sophia Hayes, isn't it? Ethan sighed, dropping the pretense. So that's her name, the woman I saw you talking to in the lobby. He stood up, matching his brother's stance. Yes, it's about her. Do you have any idea how it looks, the CEO of Vaughn Industries fraternizing with the cleaning staff? Fraternizing? Alexander repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. She's an old friend. An old friend who happens to be scrubbing our floors. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Come on, Alexander. We have a reputation to maintain. The board wouldn't approve. I don't care what the board thinks about my personal life, Alexander said firmly. And I didn't build this company to become the kind of person who judges others based on their job title. Ethan studied his brother's face. This is more than just an old friendship, isn't it? Who is she to you, really? Alexander straightened up, taking a deep breath. She's the woman I was in love with before I left Willow Creek. The one I never forgot. Ethan looked genuinely surprised. The girl from your hometown, the one you used to talk about when we first became roommates in college. Alexander nodded. Yes, and I want that cleaning contract reinstated immediately. Her team stays in this building. Even if I did that, it wouldn't change anything, Ethan pointed out. She's still a cleaner, and you're still Alexander Vaughn. Those worlds don't mix, brother. They did once, Alexander said quietly. And they can again. Just reinstate the contract. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but think carefully about what you're doing. Not just for the company, but for yourself, and for her. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for people from our past is to leave them there. Alexander turned to leave, but stopped at the door. One more thing. Stay out of my personal life from now on. I mean it, Ethan. As he walked back to his office, Alexander's mind was racing. Ethan had always been the practical one, focused on appearances and reputation. In many ways, his brother's business sense had helped Vaughn Industries grow rapidly. But sometimes Ethan forgot that success wasn't just about profit margins and public perception. Alexander picked up his phone and dialed the owner of the cleaning company himself, ensuring that Sophia's team would remain assigned to the Voswan building. Then he called Margaret. I need you to find Sophia Hayes' address, he said without preamble. The woman from the cleaning crew? Margaret asked, surprising Alexander with her knowledge. Yes, how did you know about her? Margaret's voice held a hint of amusement. Sir, the entire building is talking about how you rescheduled a board meeting to talk to her. People notice things. Alexander sighed. Just find her address, please. And Margaret, this stays between us. Of course, sir. An hour later, Alexander was standing outside a rundown apartment building in one of the city's struggling neighborhoods. The contrast between this place and his own luxury penthouse couldn't have been more stark. This was Sophia's reality, the life she'd been living while he enjoyed the fruits of his success. He approached her apartment door and knocked. For several long moments, there was no response. He was about to knock again when the door finally opened. Sophia stood there, in jeans and a faded blue t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked surprised to see him. How did you find me? She asked. I asked, he said simply. Can I come in, please? Sophia hesitated, then stepped aside. Alexander entered a small, neat apartment. It was clean but sparse, with second-hand furniture and few personal touches. A stack of textbooks sat on a small table in the corner next to a worn laptop. "Your brother's office called this morning," Sophia said, closing the door. "They said there had been a mistake, and our assignment wasn't changing after all." "It wasn't a mistake," Alexander admitted. "Ethan changed the assignment because he saw us talking. He thought it was inappropriate." Sophia's expression hardened. "Because I'm the help. Because he's an idiot," Alexander corrected. "But I fixed it. I don't need you fighting my battles, Alexander." "I know you don't. But this was my battle too. My brother had no right to interfere." Sophia crossed her arms. "Why are you here, really?" Alexander took a deep breath. "Because I couldn't let last night end the way it did. Because I need you to know that I don't care what anyone thinks about us reconnecting. And because I never stopped caring about you, Sophia. Never." Sophia's eyes filled with unexpected tears. "Don't say things like that. You don't know me anymore." "Then let me know you," he said, taking a step toward her. "Let me into your life, Sophia. Not to change it or fix it, but to be part of it." Sophia wiped away a tear that had escaped. "You live in a penthouse, Alexander. I live here. You run a billion-dollar company. I clean floors. How could this possibly work?" "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "But I know I have to try. Don't you feel it too? This connection between us. It's still there." Sophia turned away, moving to the window that overlooked a brick wall of the adjacent building. "Even if I did feel something, it doesn't change reality. Your world would never accept me." "I don't care about my world," Alexander said, following her to the window. "I care about you. It's not that simple." "It can be," he insisted. "Just give us a chance. One real chance." Sophia turned to face him, her expression a mix of longing and fear. "What would that even look like, dating the CEO while I clean his building? The gossip alone would be unbearable." "Then quit," Alexander said impulsively. Sophia's eyes widened. "Quit my job and do what live off your charity?" "No, of course not. But you're studying business, right? Let me help you find a position that uses those skills, something that challenges you." "So, you can rescue me." "The billionaire saves the poor cleaning lady. I have my pride, Alexander." "This isn't about saving you," Alexander said firmly. "This is about giving you the opportunities you should have had 20 years ago. The ones that were taken from you when your mother got sick." Sophia was silent for a long moment. "Even if I wanted to, I can't just quit. I have bills to pay. Rent due next week, tuition for next semester." "Let me help," Alexander pleaded. "Not as charity, but as an investment in your future. A loan you can pay me back when you're established in your new career with interest, if that makes you feel better." Despite herself, Sophia laughed a small, genuine laugh that made Alexander's heart soar. "You're impossible, you know that." "I've been called worse," he smiled. "Just think about it. Please." Their eyes met, and the electricity between them was undeniable. For a brief moment, Alexander thought she might let him kiss her, but Sophia stepped back. "I need time," she said softly. "This is all too sudden." Alexander nodded, understanding. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere this time, I promise." As he turned to leave, Sophia called after him. "Alexander, thank you for coming here, for caring enough to try." He smiled a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Always, Sophia, always." As Alexander left the apartment building, he felt a lightness in his step that had been missing for years. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in 2 decades, it felt right. Sophia was back in his life, and no matter what obstacles stood in their way, different worlds, societal expectations, or his own brother's disapproval, he was determined to prove that some connections were worth fighting for. Because in the end, wealth and success meant nothing if you had no one to share them with. And Alexander had finally found the one person who had always made his life complete. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood nervously in front of the Vaughn, an industries building, dressed in a new suit she'd purchased for the occasion. After much thought and several more conversations with Alexander, she had decided to take a chance not on him, not yet, but on herself. Today was her interview for an entry-level position in the company's customer service department. Alexander had kept his word about not directly interfering. The position was one she was qualified for with her partial business studies, and she would be interviewed like any other candidate. As she walked through the same lobby she had cleaned just weeks before, Sophia held her head high, ignoring the curious glances from staff who recognized her from her cleaning job. This was her chance to start over, to prove to herself and to Alexander that she was capable of more. The interview went better than she had expected. The department manager, a no-nonsense woman named Sandra, seemed impressed by Sophia's determination and practical experience. "You've taken quite an unusual path," Sandra commented, reviewing Sophia's resume. "Not many people transition from cleaning staff to customer service." "I believe that gives me a unique perspective," Sophia replied confidently. "I understand the importance of every role in a company, and I know how to work hard without complaint." Sandra nodded approvingly. "We'll be in touch by the end of the week." As Sophia exited the interview room, she nearly collided with Ethan Vaughn in the hallway. He recognized her immediately, his expression cool and assessing. "Ms. Hayes, isn't it my brother's friend, Mr. Vaughn?" Sophia acknowledged, refusing to be intimidated. "Yes, I'm a friend of Alexander's." Ethan glanced at her interview attire. "And now applying for a position here. How convenient." "I applied for a position I'm qualified for," Sophia stated firmly. "And I intend to earn it just like everyone else." Something in her direct gaze must have impressed Ethan, because his expression shifted slightly. "I see why my brother is so taken with you. You have spirit." "I have more than that," Sophia responded. "I have determination and integrity. Your brother sees that. I hope you will too." Without waiting for his response, Sophia continued down the hallway, her back straight and her head high. She hadn't come this far to be intimidated by anyone, not even the second most powerful man in Vaughn Industries. As she left the building, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "Dinner tonight to celebrate your interview." She smiled and typed back, "Let's wait until there's something to celebrate." His response came immediately. "There already is. You took a chance. That's worth celebrating." Have you ever taken a bold step to change your career or life path? Share in the comments. What motivated you? And don't forget to follow for more inspiring stories of resilience and second chances. 3 days after her interview, Sophia received the call she had been hoping for. She got the job. The starting salary was modest, but significantly better than what she earned as a cleaner, with regular hours that would allow her to take more classes at the community college. That evening, she and Alexander celebrated at Marco's restaurant. The old Italian greeted them warmly, treating them like regular customers already. "To new beginnings," Alexander said, raising his glass of wine. Sophia clinked her glass against his. "New beginnings." She echoed, a smile warming her face. "You know," Alexander said, "I had nothing to do with this job. Sandra told me you impressed her with your practical approach and determination. Her words, not mine." "I know," Sophia nodded. "She made that very clear during my second interview. Said she didn't care if I was friends with the CEO. If I couldn't do the job, I wouldn't last a week." Alexander laughed. "That sounds like Sandra. She's been with the company since the early days. One of the few people who still calls me out when I'm wrong." "I like her already," Sophia said with a grin. As they enjoyed their meal, Sophia couldn't help noticing how natural it felt to be with Alexander. Despite the years and vastly different life experiences that separated them, conversation flowed easily between them. It was as if some essential connection had remained intact, weathering the storms of separation and time. "When do you start?" Alexander asked as they shared dessert. "Monday," Sophia replied. "I gave notice at the cleaning company yesterday." "How did they take it?" "Better than I expected. My supervisor said he'd been wondering when I'd find something that used my brain more than my back." Alexander's expression grew serious. "Sophia, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." She set down her fork, suddenly nervous. "What is it? Are you taking this job because you want it, or because you think it's what I want?" The question caught her off guard. "I want it," she said after a moment. "It's a step toward what I've been working for with my classes." "Why would you think otherwise?" Alexander reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Because I know you. You've always put others before yourself, and I don't want you to feel pressured to change your life because of me." Sophia felt a rush of emotion at his words, at the realization that after all these years, he still understood a fundamental truth about her. "I'm doing this for me," she assured him, "but I might not have had the courage to try without you reappearing in my life." He squeezed her hand. That's all I needed to hear. As they left the restaurant, a light rain began to fall. Alexander opened a large umbrella, sheltering them both, as they walked slowly toward the main avenue where his car waited. "I have another question," Alexander said, his voice slightly hesitant. "You're full of questions tonight," Sophia teased. "This one's important." He stopped walking, turning to face her under the umbrella. The rain created a curtain around them, a private world in the middle of the busy city. "Now that we'll be working in the same building, people will talk about us." Sophia nodded slowly. "I know. So I need to know, what are we, Sophia?" "Friends. Something more. I don't want to presume, but I also don't want to pretend I don't feel what I feel for you." Sophia looked down at her hands. "I don't know yet," she answered honestly. "I care about you, Alexander. I think I always have. But there's still so much between us, 20 years of separate lives, different worlds. I need time." Instead of looking disappointed, Alexander smiled. "Time is something I can give, as much as you need." Impulsively, Sophia reached up and touched his cheek. "Thank you for understanding." For a moment they stood there in the rain, close enough to kiss, but held apart by the ghosts of their past and the uncertainties of their future. Then Alexander offered his arm, and they continued their walk, each lost in thoughts of what might be possible. Sophia's first week at Vaughn Industries passed in a blur of training sessions, new faces and systems to learn. She was assigned to a team handling client communications, and though the learning curve was steep, she tackled it with the same determination she brought to everything in her life. She rarely saw Alexander during work hours. His office was on the top floor, while customer service occupied the third. When they did cross paths in the lobby or cafeteria, they exchanged friendly but professional greetings, aware of the curious eyes following their interactions. Friday afternoon, Sophia was exhausted but satisfied with her first week. As she gathered her things to leave, her desk phone rang. "Customer service, this is Sophia," she answered professionally. "Ms. Hayes, this is Patricia from the executive floor. Mr. Vaughn would like to see you in his office before you leave today." Sophia's heart skipped. "Mr. Vaughn?" she asked, uncertain which brother was summoning her. "Alexander Vaughn," Patricia clarified. "Whenever you're ready, just come up to the 30th floor." As Sophia rode the elevator to the executive floor, she couldn't help feeling nervous. She and Alexander had kept their personal relationship separate from work all week. What could he want to discuss in his office? Patricia, a polished older woman with silver hair, greeted her with a warm smile and led her to Alexander's office. The space was impressive, large windows offering panoramic views of the city, modern furniture, and walls lined with awards and business magazines featuring Alexander on the cover. Alexander was standing by the window when she entered, his back to the door. He turned at the sound of her arrival, his face lighting up with a smile. "Sophia, thank you for coming up. Please have a seat." She sat in one of the comfortable chairs facing his desk, instantly aware of how this setting emphasized the differences in their positions. He, the powerful CEO, she, the new customer service representative. "Is everything okay?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexander sat on the edge of his desk, rather than behind it, reducing some of the formality. "Everything's fine. I just wanted to check how your first week went. We haven't had much chance to talk." Sophia relaxed slightly. "It's been good. Challenging, but in a good way. The team has been welcoming. No issues. No one giving you a hard time because of our connection." A few curious looks, she admitted. "Some whispers, but nothing I can't handle." Alexander nodded, looking relieved. "Good. I've been worried. Ethan mentioned there might be talk." Sophia straightened in her chair. "Your brother has been monitoring me." "Not monitoring," Alexander quickly corrected. "He simply heard things. Office gossip spreads fast." "What kind of gossip?" Sophia asked. Alexander sighed. "The usual nonsense that you only got the job because of your connection to me, that we're—" He hesitated. "That we're what?" Sophia pressed. "Involved. Romantically." Sophia felt her cheeks warm. "I see. I wanted to make sure it wasn't making things difficult for you," Alexander explained. "The last thing I want is for you to be uncomfortable here." "I can handle gossip," Sophia said firmly. "I've dealt with worse." Alexander studied her face for a moment, then smiled. "I never doubted that. You're the strongest person I know, Sophia." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door, and Ethan entered without waiting for an invitation. "Alexander, we need to discuss the O." He stopped short when he saw Sophia. "Ethan?" Alexander said, his voice cooling noticeably. "We were just talking." Ethan's eyes moved between them, his expression unreadable. "In your office at the end of the business day. Just talking." "Yes," Alexander said firmly. "Is there something you needed?" Ethan placed a folder on Alexander's desk. "The Chen proposal needs your signature before the weekend, but it can wait until you're finished here." The implication in his tone was clear, and Sophia stood up abruptly. "I should go." "Thank you for checking in, Mr. Vaughn," Alexander said, shooting his brother an irritated look before turning back to Sophia. "Of course, Miss Hayes. Have a good weekend." As Sophia moved toward the door, Ethan made no effort to step aside, forcing her to squeeze past him. She could feel his calculating gaze following her. "Ms. Hayes," he called after her. "A word of advice in a company this size, appearances matter more than you might think." Sophia paused, turning back. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Vaughn, but I've never much cared for appearances. I prefer substance." With that, she walked out, her head high, despite the trembling in her hands. Behind her, she could hear the brothers' voices rising in what sounded like the beginning of an argument. In the elevator, Sophia leaned against the wall, trying to calm her racing heart. Ethan Vaughn clearly disapproved of her relationship with Alexander, whatever that relationship might be, and he had the power to make her life at Vaughn Industries very difficult. But she hadn't survived 20 years of struggle by backing down from challenges. If Ethan thought she would be easily intimidated, he was about to learn otherwise. The following week brought new challenges. Sophia arrived Monday morning to find her desk had been moved from its central location in the customer service department to a small corner near the supply closet. Her computer had been replaced with an older model, and her phone now had persistent static that made client calls difficult. Her team leader Mark seemed apologetic, but helpless. "It came from upstairs," he explained quietly. "Some reorganization thing. I tried to push back, but Ethan Vaughn's orders trump yours," Sophia finished for him. "It's okay, Mark, I understand." Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Files she needed mysteriously disappeared. Her access to certain databases was inexplicably revoked. Lunch invitations from co-workers became less frequent as people worried about being associated with her. Sophia said nothing to Alexander. This was her battle to fight, and running to him would only prove Ethan right that she was using her connection to Alexander for special treatment. On Thursday afternoon, Sophia was struggling with a particularly difficult client call, the static on her line making communication nearly impossible when Ethan appeared in the customer service department. He moved through the space like a visiting dignitary, nodding politely to staff members who straightened in their chairs at his approach. He stopped at Sophia's desk, just as she was apologizing to the client for the poor connection. "Ms. Hayes," Ethan said loudly enough for nearby colleagues to hear. "A moment of your time, please." Sophia held up a finger, indicating she needed to finish the call. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he waited watching as she resolved the client's issue, despite the technical difficulties. After she hung up, Sophia turned to him with a professional smile. "How can I help you, Mr. Vaughn?" "I'm conducting a department review," he said smoothly. "I notice you've been having some equipment issues." "Nothing I can't handle," Sophia replied evenly. Ethan glanced around at her isolated workspace. "And this location, is it conducive to your productivity?" Sophia met his gaze directly. "I can do my job from anywhere, Mr. Vaughn." A hint of respect flickered in Ethan's eyes. "Impressive resilience, Ms. Hayes. Tell me, how long do you think you can maintain it?" "As long as necessary," she answered without hesitation. Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You know why this is happening, don't you? It's not personal. It's business. My brother has worked too hard to build this company to have it compromised by distractions." "Is that what I am?" "A distraction?" "You're a complication," Ethan corrected. "One that could be easily resolved if you simply moved on. I'd be happy to provide an excellent reference for a position at another company." Sophia felt anger rising but kept her voice controlled. "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Vaughn, but I earned this position and I intend to keep it." Ethan straightened, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. "As you wish, but remember, everyone has a breaking point. I wonder what yours will be." As he walked away, Sophia's hands clenched into fists beneath her desk. She had faced hardship before. Poverty loss, the crushing of youthful dreams, but this calculated campaign to drive her out was testing her in new ways. That evening, as she packed up to leave, Mark approached her desk. "Tough day?" he asked sympathetically. Sophia sighed. "Tough week." Mark glanced around to ensure they wouldn't be overheard. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you and the Vaughn brothers, and I don't need to know, but the team likes you, Sophia. You're good at this job. If there's anything we can do to help..." His support touched her deeply. "Thank you, Mark. Just knowing I have allies here means a lot." As Sophia left the building, she found Alexander waiting beside his car at the curb. Seeing him there, clearly waiting for her, despite the risk of being seen together, made her heart skip. "Need a ride?" he asked, with a gentle smile. "What are you doing here?" she asked, glancing around at the departing employees, who were trying not to stare. "I missed you," he said simply. "And I thought you might need a friend tonight." The sincerity in his eyes broke through the walls she'd been building all week. A friend with a car sounds pretty good right now. As they drove through the evening traffic, Sophia finally opened up about Ethan's tactics. "Why didn't you tell me?" Alexander asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Because I needed to handle it myself," Sophia explained. "Running to you would only make things worse." "He has no right to treat you this way," Alexander said, anger evident in his voice. "I'll put a stop to it tomorrow." "No," Sophia said firmly. "That's exactly what he wants to prove, that I need your protection, that I can't succeed on my own merits." Alexander glanced at her, then back at the road. "Then what do you want to do?" Sophia thought for a moment. "I want to outsmart him, show him I'm not so easily broken." A slow smile spread across Alexander's face. "I have an idea, but it would require us working together as equals. No CEO power moves, I promise." "I'm listening," Sophia said, intrigued. "Ethan is worried about appearances, about how our connection might affect the company. So let's address it head on. There's a charity gala next weekend. All the company executives will be there, major clients, even some press. Come with me." "As your date?" Sophia asked, surprised. "As my guest," Alexander clarified. "We make one public appearance together, acknowledge our past connection openly, but professionally, and remove all the mystery that's feeding the gossip. Ethan loses his leverage when there's nothing to hide." Sophia considered the strategy. It was bold, potentially risky, but it made sense. "You really think it would work? Ethan knows how to manipulate from the shadows." "He's not as effective when things are out in the open," Alexander explained. "Plus, I'd get to spend an evening with you, which is a win for me regardless." Sophia couldn't help smiling at that. "One problem, I don't exactly have a gala-appropriate dress hanging in my closet." "That's the easy part," Alexander said confidently. "Leave it to me." "No," Sophia said quickly. "No buying me dresses, Alexander. That crosses a line." Alexander thought for a moment. "Fair enough. What about Rita, your neighbor? Didn't you mention she works in fashion?" "She's a seamstress at a bridal shop," Sophia confirmed. "Perfect. What if I provide the material and she creates something that way? We're supporting her business, not just buying you a gift." Sophia had to admit it was a good compromise. "I'll talk to her." As they arrived at her apartment building, Alexander turned to her. "Sophia, I need to know, are you sure about this? Ethan won't back down easily. Things might get worse before they get better." Sophia looked at the man beside her, successful, powerful, yet still the same boy who had believed in her dreams all those years ago. "I'm sure," she said softly. "Some things are worth fighting for." The words hung between them, laden with meaning that extended far beyond her job situation. Alexander reached across the car, taking her hand. "Yes," he agreed, his eyes never leaving hers. "They are." The week leading up to the gala was surprisingly peaceful at work. News that Sophia would be attending as Alexander's guest had spread quickly, neutralizing some of Ethan's more overt tactics. Her computer was mysteriously fixed, and while her desk remained in its isolated corner, at least her phone worked properly again. Ethan himself maintained a cold distance, his disapproval evident in his eyes whenever they crossed paths, but he made no further moves against her. It was as if he was waiting, watching to see how the gala would unfold before planning his next strategy. Saturday evening arrived, and Sophia stood in front of her mirror, hardly recognizing herself. Rita had outdone herself with the dress, a stunning creation in deep emerald green that highlighted Sophia's eyes and complemented her complexion perfectly. The design was elegant without being overtly sexy, striking the perfect balance between sophistication and approachability. "You look like you belong on a red carpet," Rita said, making final adjustments to the hem. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up," Sophia admitted nervously. Rita straightened, putting her hands on Sophia's shoulders. Listen to me. You're beautiful smart, and more than capable of holding your own with those corporate types. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise, not even yourself. A knock at the door announced Alexander's arrival. When Sophia opened it, the look on his face made all her insecurities vanish. He stared at her with such open admiration that she felt herself blushing. "You look incredible, doesn't seem adequate," he said, seemingly at a loss for words. "Thank Rita," Sophia said, gesturing to her friend. "She's the miracle worker." After proper introductions and Rita's not-so-subtle approval of Alexander, they headed out. Alexander had arranged for a car service rather than arriving in his personal vehicle, another thoughtful touch to keep the evening as unintimidating as possible for Sophia. The gala was held at one of the city's most prestigious hotels, with a red carpet entrance where photographers snapped pictures of arriving guests. Sophia felt a moment of panic as they approached. "I didn't think about photographers," she whispered to Alexander. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Just smile and keep walking. They're mostly interested in clients more famous than me." But as they stepped onto the carpet, several cameras turned their way, and Sophia heard Alexander's name being called. One photographer moved closer. "Mr. Vaughn, who's your date tonight?" Alexander smiled politely. "This is Sophia Hayes, a longtime friend and valued member of our customer service team at Vaughn Industries." The photographer looked momentarily confused by the straightforward introduction, no mystery, no scandal. Then he moved on to more promising targets. "See," Alexander whispered, "honesty deflates gossip." Inside the grand ballroom, the gala was in full swing. Elegant decorations, a string quartet playing softly, waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Sophia took a deep breath, overwhelmed by the opulence. "Remember," Alexander said gently, "you have as much right to be here as anyone, even in a borrowed dress." "Even in this dress?" she asked with a small smile. "Especially in that dress," he assured her. "Every woman here will be envious, and every man will wish they were me." His confidence bolstered her own, and as they moved through the crowd, Sophia found herself relaxing. Alexander introduced her to colleagues and clients with the same straightforward explanation he'd given the photographer, a longtime friend and valued employee. Some seemed curious about their connection, but most accepted it at face value. They were speaking with an important client when Ethan approached a stunning blonde woman on his arm. "Brother," Ethan greeted Alexander with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And Ms. Hayes, what a surprise to see you here." "Not a surprise at all, Ethan," Alexander replied evenly. "I mentioned Sophia would be joining me tonight." Ethan introduced his companion as Victoria Lancaster, a model and socialite who seemed bored by the exchange. "Victoria, this is my brother and his friend Sophia." "Charmed," Victoria said without enthusiasm, her eyes already scanning the room. Ethan turned to the client. "Howard, I hope my brother has been telling you about the exciting developments in our Asian markets. The Tokyo office is exceeding all expectations." As the men fell into business talk, Victoria leaned toward Sophia. "So you're the cleaning lady," she said in a low voice. "Ethan told me all about you." Sophia met her gaze steadily. "Former cleaning lady, current customer service representative. And you're... what exactly? Besides Ethan's date?" Victoria's mouth opened in shock, just as Ethan turned back. "Is everything all right, ladies?" "Perfectly fine," Sophia assured him with a sweet smile. Victoria was just sharing details about her career. Alexander, who had overheard, couldn't hide his amusement. "If you'll excuse us, we should continue making the rounds." As they moved away, Alexander leaned close to whisper in Sophia's ear. Substance over style. Too much? Sophia asked, suddenly worried she'd overstepped. Perfect, Alexander assured her, his eyes dancing with admiration. Absolutely perfect. The rest of the evening flowed more smoothly. Sophia found herself genuinely enjoying conversations with Alexander's colleagues, many of whom were surprisingly down to earth despite their wealth and status. When the band began playing after dinner, Alexander led her to the dance floor. I should warn you, Sophia said as he took her in his arms. I haven't danced in years. Just follow my lead, he said softly. Trust me. And she did. As they moved together to the music, the years seemed to fall away. Sophia remembered their high school prom, how nervous she had been then, how gently Alexander had guided her through each dance. Now as then their bodies remembered each other, finding a natural rhythm together. You know, Alexander said, his voice low and intimate, this isn't how I imagined our reunion would go. Oh, how did you imagine it? Sophia asked, looking up at him. Less complicated, he admitted with a rueful smile. No interfering brother, no office politics. Just us finding our way back to each other. Is that what we're doing? Sophia asked softly. Finding our way back. Alexander's eyes grew serious. I hope so. Because being with you these past few weeks, even with all the complications, has made me happier than I've been in 20 years. The raw honesty in his voice touched something deep inside her. Sophia felt the last of her defenses beginning to crumble. Alexander. She began, her voice barely audible above the music. Before she could finish, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A disheveled man was arguing loudly with the security guards, pushing past them into the ballroom. Where is he? The man shouted, his words slightly slurred. Where's Alexander Vaughn? Alexander tensed, recognition flashing in his eyes. Stay here, he told Sophia, moving away from her toward the disturbance. Michael, Alexander said calmly as he approached the man. What are you doing here? The man, Michael, laughed bitterly. What am I doing here that's rich coming from the man who stole my company out from under me? A crowd had begun to gather, watching the confrontation with undisguised interest. Sophia moved closer, concerned for Alexander. You're drunk, Michael, Alexander said quietly. This isn't the time or place for this discussion. When is the time? Michael demanded, his voice rising. When you've taken everything I've worked for. When my wife has left me because I can't provide for her anymore. Ethan appeared beside his brother. Security will handle this, he said, signaling to the guards who were approaching cautiously. No. Alexander held up a hand, stopping them. Michael, let's talk outside. Just you and me. But Michael wasn't interested in a private conversation. His eyes were wild with alcohol and desperation. You think you're so perfect, don't you? The great Alexander Vaughn Businessman of the Year. But I know the truth. You build yourself up by destroying others. That's not true, Alexander said firmly. Your company was failing before the acquisition. I saved jobs, Michael. I offered you a position as a consultant. A consultant in my own company, Michael spat. No, you're no savior. You're a predator in an expensive suit. Sophia watched the color drain from Alexander's face. This wasn't the Alexander she knew or thought she knew. Could this man's accusations be true? Ethan nodded to the security guards who moved in and took Michael by the arms. Get him out of here, Ethan ordered. As they dragged the still shouting man away, the ballroom fell into an uncomfortable silence. Then Ethan, ever the master of damage control, stepped forward. Please, everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening. Just an unfortunate misunderstanding. The bar will remain open for another hour, and all proceeds go to children's education, a cause we can all drink to. The awkward laughter that followed broke the tension, and conversations gradually resumed, but Sophia could see the incident had shaken Alexander deeply. "Are you okay?" she asked when he returned to her side. "Not really," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry you had to witness that." "Who was he?" Sophia asked quietly. Alexander sighed. "Michael Davis. We acquired his tech company last year when it was on the verge of bankruptcy. He's been struggling ever since." Was what he said true? Sophia couldn't stop herself from asking. "About you destroying others to build yourself up?" Pain flashed across Alexander's face. "Is that what you think of me?" "I don't know what to think," Sophia said honestly. "The Alexander I knew would never hurt someone else for his own gain. But that was 20 years ago. People change." Alexander was silent for a long moment. "I need some air," he finally said. "Will you come with me?" Sophia nodded, following him through French doors to a terrace overlooking the hotel gardens. The night air was cool, a welcome relief from the emotional tension inside. Michael's company was innovative, but poorly managed. Alexander began without preamble. "They were 3 months from complete collapse when we stepped in. Yes, we got a good deal because of their desperate situation. Yes, we restructured and let some people go. But we saved over 200 jobs that would have been lost if the company had folded completely." "And Michael?" Sophia asked. "I offered him a position as a consultant because he's brilliant with product development but terrible with business operations. He refused. Couldn't accept that he had failed, needed someone to blame." Alexander turned to face her. "Business can be ruthless, Sophia. I won't pretend otherwise. But I've never deliberately set out to destroy someone for my own benefit. Never." The intensity in his eyes, the pain behind his words, convinced Sophia he was telling the truth, at least his version of it. "I believe you," she said softly. Relief washed over his face. "Thank you. That means more than you know." "But I understand him too," Sophia added. "What it's like to have dreams slip away to watch others succeed while you struggle. It's hard not to look for someone to blame." Alexander studied her face in the moonlight. "Is that how you felt when you saw me again? Did you blame me for the life you ended up with?" It was a question Sophia hadn't fully confronted even in her own mind. "Maybe at first," she admitted. "It was easier than accepting that life just isn't fair sometimes, that some people get lucky breaks and others don't." "I got the lucky break," Alexander said quietly. "The scholarship that took me away. But I lost the most important thing in my life when I left you behind." The raw honesty in his voice made Sophia's heart ache. She stepped closer, drawn by a force she couldn't resist. "Maybe we both lost something important, but maybe it's not too late to find it again." Alexander's eyes searched hers, hope and uncertainty battling in his expression. "Sophia, I need to know. After everything Ethan's interference tonight's seen, the complications between us, do you regret reconnecting with me?" Sophia took a deep breath, ready at last to be as honest with him as he had been with her. "No," she said firmly. "I don't regret it. Despite everything, these past weeks have reminded me what it feels like to truly connect with someone, to be seen for who I really am." Alexander reached for her hand, his touch warm and familiar. "I see you, Sophia. I always have." In the moonlight, with the distant sound of music floating from the ballroom, Sophia made a decision. She leaned forward and kissed him gently at first, then with growing confidence as he responded. 20 years of separation dissolved in that moment, replaced by a connection that felt both new and achingly familiar. When they finally pulled apart, Alexander's eyes were shining with emotion. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you again." "Me too," Sophia admitted with a smile. "I just wasn't ready to admit it." As they stood together under the stars, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope, not just for a potential relationship with Alexander, but for herself, for the possibility that sometimes life offered second chances when you least expected them. What neither of them noticed was Ethan standing in the shadows of the terrace, watching their intimate moment with calculating eyes. His expression darkened as he turned away, pulling out his phone and making a call. "It's me," he said quietly. "I need that information we discussed. Yes, all of it. It's time to end this distraction once and for all." Inside the ballroom, the party continued. Outside, the seeds of a new conflict were being sown, one that would test not only Sophia and Alexander's rekindling relationship, but the very foundations of trust they were trying to rebuild. The Monday following the gala, Sophia arrived at work with a lightness in her step that hadn't been there before. Her kiss with Alexander had changed something fundamental between them, crossing a threshold from past to possible future. They had spent Sunday together, walking through Central Park, talking for hours about everything and nothing, rediscovering each other as the people they had become. As she settled at her desk, Sophia noticed her colleagues treating her differently, some with new respect, others with barely concealed curiosity. News of her appearance at the gala with Alexander had spread throughout the company, transforming her overnight from the former cleaning lady to someone of interest. Mark stopped by her desk mid-morning, a friendly smile on his face. "Nice weekend." "You know it was," Sophia admitted, unable to hide her happiness completely. "You've got everyone talking," he said, lowering his voice. "Not in a bad way. Mostly people are just surprised. No one's ever seen Alexander Vaughn bring a date to a company function before." Sophia felt a blush creeping up her cheeks. "We're old friends." "Right," Mark said with a knowing smile. "Friends? Well, whatever you are, it's nice to see the boss looking happy for a change. Just be careful, okay? Office politics can get messy." Sophia appreciated his concern. "I'll keep that in mind." Around noon, she received an unexpected message from Patricia Alexander's assistant, asking her to come to the executive floor for lunch. Curious and slightly nervous, Sophia took the elevator up. Patricia greeted her with a warm smile. "Sophia, thank you for coming. Mr. Vaughn asked me to bring you to his private dining room." "Private dining room?" Sophia repeated, surprised. Patricia nodded. "For meetings with important clients or special guests." She led Sophia to a beautiful room with a small table set for 2 floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the city. Alexander was waiting, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Is this okay?" he asked once Patricia had left them alone. "I wanted to see you, but I didn't want to cause more gossip by going down to the cafeteria." "It's fine," Sophia assured him, though she felt slightly out of place in the elegant setting. "But people will still talk." Alexander shrugged. "They'll talk regardless. After last night, I wanted to make sure you were okay, that you didn't have any regrets." Sophia sat down across from him. "No regrets?" she said with a soft smile. "But I am worried about Ethan. He didn't look happy when we left the gala." "Ethan is always unhappy about something," Alexander said, though concern flickered in his eyes. "But you're right to be cautious. My brother can be resourceful when he wants something." "And he wants me gone," Sophia stated simply. "He wants what he thinks is best for the company," Alexander corrected. "He just fails to see that controlling my personal life isn't his job." They enjoyed their lunch, keeping the conversation light, careful to maintain a professional distance, despite the private setting. Sophia was acutely aware that their relationship existed in a delicate balance, personal feelings on one side, professional realities on the other. As she prepared to return to her department, Alexander caught her hand. "Dinner tonight. My place." The invitation surprised her. They had been meeting in public places or at her apartment neutral ground. His home represented another step, another threshold to cross. "Your place," she repeated. "It's time you saw how I live," he said with a gentle smile. "I've seen your world. It's only fair you see mine." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but I can't stay late. Early meeting tomorrow." The look that passed between them acknowledged the excuse for what it was, a safety measure, a way to maintain control over a situation that was increasingly drawing her into unknown territory. Alexander's penthouse was exactly what Sophia had imagined, and simultaneously, nothing like she expected. The space was undeniably luxurious, spacious rooms, designer furniture art on the walls that probably cost more than her yearly salary. But there was also a surprising warmth to it, personal touches that reflected the man rather than his wealth. "Not what you expected?" Alexander asked, watching her reaction as she took in the surroundings. "I'm not sure what I expected," Sophia admitted. He gave her a tour pointing out little details, a painting by a local artist from Willow Creek, books they had both loved in high school, photographs of places that held meaning for him. The final stop was the terrace, a stunning outdoor space with comfortable seating and an unobstructed view of the city lights. "This is where I come to think," Alexander said, as they stood side by side at the railing, the cool evening breeze playing with Sophia's hair. "Sometimes late at night I look out at all those lights and wonder about the stories behind them, all those lives, all those dreams and heartbreaks." "And heartbreaks," Sophia added softly. Alexander turned to her. "Yes, those too." He hesitated, then continued. "I used to look out there and feel alone, even with all my success, until you came back into my life." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. Sophia found herself leaning toward him, drawn by the same magnetic pull she had felt at 18, now strengthened by the adults they had become. Their kiss was gentle at first, a continuation of the moment they had shared at the gala, but it quickly deepened, years of separation and longing, fueling an intensity that surprised them both. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "I've missed you," he whispered. "Not just since we reconnected, but for 20 years. Sophia closed her eyes, absorbing his words, feeling the truth of them in her own heart. "I've missed you too." They prepared dinner together in Alexander's state-of-the-art kitchen, the domesticity of the act creating yet another bond between them. As they ate, they shared more stories of their time apart, filling in the gaps of 20 years with laughter and occasional tears. "Why did you never marry?" Sophia asked as they settled on the couch with glasses of wine after dinner. Alexander was quiet for a moment, swirling the dark liquid in his glass. "I came close once about 10 years ago. Caroline was perfect on paper, educated, sophisticated, from a good family, the kind of wife a CEO should have. What happened? 3 days before the wedding, I called it off." He looked at her directly. "Because I realized I was marrying the idea of a wife, not the woman I loved. It wouldn't have been fair to either of us." "And since then?" Sophia prompted. "Since then, I've been married to my work," he admitted. "Until I saw you again, I had convinced myself that was enough." Sophia understood that feeling all too well, the gradual acceptance of a life less than what you had once dreamed, the quiet resignation that some happiness wasn't meant for you. "What about you?" Alexander asked gently. "You mentioned almost getting married once." Sophia nodded, memories washing over her. "Robert. He was kind, stable, everything I thought I needed after years of struggling alone. But in the end, I couldn't do it. He deserved someone who loved him completely, not someone who was settling for security." Alexander reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "And now are you settling for anything?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Sophia considered her answer carefully. "No," she finally said, "not anymore." Later, when the night had grown late, and Sophia knew she should leave, but couldn't bring herself to break the spell between them, Alexander asked the question that had been hovering unspoken all evening. "Stay," he said simply. "Stay with me tonight." Sophia felt her heart racing. "Alexander, just to sleep," he clarified quickly. "I'm not presuming anything more. I'm not ready for this night to end." The vulnerability in his eyes, the same boy she had fallen in love with all those years ago, now visible in the man before her, made her decision for her. "I'll stay," she whispered. They fell asleep in each other's arms, fully clothed. The comfort of their connection more intimate than any physical act could have been. For the first time in 20 years, both felt completely at peace. The next morning, Sophia woke early, disoriented momentarily by the unfamiliar surroundings. Alexander was still sleeping, his face relaxed and younger-looking in repose. She slipped quietly from the bed, gathered her things, and left a note on the pillow. She needed to go home and change before work, but more than that, she needed a moment to process everything that was happening between them. The early morning streets were quiet as her taxi made its way to her apartment. Sophia felt a strange mixture of joy and apprehension. What was happening with Alexander felt right, like coming home after a long journey. But the practical realities of their different worlds remained, and Ethan's opposition cast a shadow over their budding relationship. At her apartment building, Sophia paid the driver and headed inside her mind, still full of Alexander and the night they had shared. She was so distracted that she almost didn't notice the woman sitting in the shabby lobby, a magazine open on her lap. Victoria. Sophia stopped surprised to see Ethan's date from the gala in her building. Victoria Lancaster looked up, her perfect features arranged in a sympathetic expression that immediately put Sophia on guard. "Sophia, good morning. I was hoping to catch you before work." "How did you know where I live?" Sophia asked, suspicion rising. Victoria waved away the question. "Ethan mentioned it. May we talk? It's important." Every instinct told Sophia to refuse, but curiosity won out. "5 minutes. I need to get ready for work." They went up to Sophia's apartment, the contrast between her modest space and Alexander's penthouse startlingly evident. Victoria glanced around with poorly concealed disdain before perching on the edge of Sophia's worn sofa. "What's this about?" Sophia asked, remaining standing. Victoria reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a folder. "I thought you should see these for your own good." Sophia took the folder cautiously. Inside were photographs Alexander with various women over the past several years, at charity events, business functions, casual dinners. In each, he was smiling his arm around a different, beautiful, sophisticated woman. "What is this supposed to be?" Sophia asked, her voice steady despite the unease growing in her stomach. "Reality," Victoria said simply. "Alexander Vaughn has a type, educated, wealthy, connected women who enhance his image, women from his world." She paused meaningfully. "Not women who clean his floors." Sophia closed the folder. "If Ethan sent you to intimidate me, you're wasting your time." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Ethan, no. This is woman to woman. I've dated men like Alexander, men who occasionally slum it for the thrill, for the ego boost of being a savior, but they always return to their own kind." "You don't know anything about me and Alexander," Sophia said firmly. "I know he'll hurt you," Victoria replied, her voice softening with what seemed like genuine concern. "Maybe not intentionally, but inevitably. The novelty will wear off, and he'll remember that his reputation, his business, his entire life exists in a world you can't truly enter." Sophia felt a flicker of doubt, but pushed it aside. "Thank you for your concern, but I think you should go." Victoria stood smoothing her expensive dress. Keep the photos, and when it ends, because it will remember that some wounds are easier to heal when you see them coming. After Victoria left, Sophia sat on her sofa, the folder heavy in her hands. She knew she should throw it away, ignore the seeds of doubt Victoria had tried to plant, but instead she opened it again, studying each photograph, each smiling woman on Alexander's arm. Had he felt something for them, too? Had he made them feel special, only to eventually return to his real life, his real world? Was she just the latest in a line of temporary diversions? By the time Sophia arrived at work, her mind was a battlefield of trust and doubt. She had left Alexander's bed feeling certain of their connection, of the path they were forging together. Now uncertainty crept in Victoria's words, echoing in her thoughts. The morning passed in a fog. Around 11 Tugra, she received a text from Alexander. Last night was perfect. Dinner again tonight. She stared at the message, unable to formulate a response. Before she could decide, Mark appeared at her desk, his expression serious. Sophia, Ethan Vaughn wants to see you in his office now. Her stomach tightened with apprehension. Did he say what it's about? Mark shook his head. No, but he seemed determined. The walk to Ethan's office felt like a march to the gallows. Sophia steeled herself, preparing for whatever new tactic he had devised to drive her out of the company and from Alexander. Ethan was standing by the window when she entered, his back to the door. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. Ms. Hayes, thank you for coming promptly. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. Sophia remained standing. I'd prefer to stand if it's all the same to you. A hint of a smile touched Ethan's lips. As you wish. He moved to his desk, picking up a folder identical to the one Victoria had given her. I assume my associate already paid you a visit this morning, he said. So Victoria had been working for Ethan after all. Yes, she did. Your tactics are getting more desperate, Mr. Vaughn. Not desperate, Ethan corrected. Strategic. Victoria presented one perspective. I'd like to offer another. He opened the folder, but instead of photographs, it contained financial documents. These are the current projections for Vaughn Industries over the next 5 years. Notice the upward trajectory. He flipped to another page. And these are the projections if certain distractions continue to compromise leadership focus. The second graph showed a significant decline. Sophia knew it was a scare tactic, but the implication was clear. You're suggesting that my relationship with Alexander will harm the company, she stated flatly. I'm stating a fact, Ethan replied coolly. My brother has worked too hard, sacrificed too much to have it all undermined by an ill-advised romance with an employee, particularly one with your background. Anger flared in Sophia. My background? You mean being poor, working honest jobs to survive? Those are character flaws in your world, aren't they? Ethan sighed as if dealing with a child. This isn't personal, Ms. Hayes. It's business. Alexander may be blinded by nostalgia or misplaced guilt over your circumstances, but I see the bigger picture. And what picture is that? Sophia challenged. A temporary infatuation that, when it inevitably ends, will leave both my brother and this company vulnerable. Ethan closed the folder. Thousands of employees depend on Vaughn Industries, their livelihoods, their families, their futures. Are you willing to put all that at risk for a romance that can't possibly last? Sophia felt the weight of his words pressing down on her. You don't know that it won't last. Don't I? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Tell me, have you ever moved in Alexander's social circles, conversed about global markets over cocktails with board members, hosted charity galas for the elite? That's his world, Ms. Hayes, a world where you'll always be the outsider, the curiosity, the project he took on out of some misguided sense of rectifying the past. Each word hit its mark with painful accuracy, echoing Sophia's own deepest fears. Victoria's photos, Ethan's cutting analysis, the undeniable reality of the vast differences between her life and Alexander's all coalesced into a heavy knot of doubt. "I think we're done here," Sophia said, her voice remarkably steady despite her inner turmoil. "One last thing," Ethan said as she turned to leave. "I'm prepared to offer you a generous severance package if you resign today. Enough to finish your degree, perhaps start fresh in another city. A clean break would be best for everyone involved, don't you think?" Sophia paused at the door. "You really believe I can be bought off?" "Everyone has a price, Ms. Hayes. It's just a matter of finding the right currency. Yours happens to be monetary. My brother's is his reputation and legacy. Think about which you value more, your feelings for Alexander or his future." Sophia left without taking the check, her mind racing. Though she hated to admit it, some of what Ethan said made sense. She and Alexander lived in different worlds. Their reunion had been passionate, fueled by memories and regrets. But was it sustainable in the cold light of reality? The rest of the day passed in a fog. Alexander texted twice more, his messages growing increasingly concerned at her lack of response. Finally, as the workday ended, Sophia made a decision. She texted back, "Can we meet at the coffee shop where we first talked, 7 p.m.? His reply came immediately. "Is everything okay?" She didn't answer, afraid that any more communication would weaken her resolve. The coffee shop was quiet when Sophia arrived, just a few patrons scattered at tables. She chose the same corner booth where she and Alexander had sat weeks ago when their reconnection was new and uncertain. Alexander arrived 5 minutes early, his face lined with worry. He slid into the seat across from her, immediately reaching for her hands. "What's wrong? I've been worried all day." Sophia gently pulled her hands away. "We need to talk, Alexander." He studied her face, reading the seriousness in her expression. "Ethan got to you, didn't he? What did he do?" "It's not just Ethan," Sophia said quietly. "Though yes, he made some points today that I can't ignore." "Whatever he said, it's manipulation," Alexander insisted. "He doesn't understand what's between us." "Maybe he sees it more clearly than we do," Sophia countered. "We've been caught up in the past, in what might have been. But we live in the present, Alexander in different worlds." Alexander's expression hardened. "So that's it. You're letting my brother dictate our relationship." "I'm being realistic," Sophia said, pain evident in her voice. "Last night was beautiful. Being with you again feels right in a way nothing has in 20 years. But then I look at the facts, your life, my life, the company, the expectations. It's not just about us. It's about the hundreds of people who depend on Vaughn Industries, about your legacy, about practical realities we've been ignoring." "I don't care about any of that," Alexander said fiercely. "I care about you, about us." "But you should care," Sophia insisted. "You've built something important, something that matters to a lot of people. I can't be the reason it suffers." Alexander leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Is this really about the company, or is it about you not believing we can make this work?" The question struck at the heart of Sophia's doubts. She looked down at her hands. "Maybe both. I saw the photos, Alexander, all those women over the years, women from your world. What makes me different? What makes you think this isn't just another temporary connection?" "Photos. What photos?" Alexander looked genuinely confused. "Victoria brought them to my apartment this morning, you with different women, all of them looking like they belonged on your arm at fancy events." Understanding dawned in Alexander's eyes, followed by anger. "Ethan," he muttered. "He's really pulling out all the stops." "Were they real?" Sophia pressed. "The photos probably," Alexander admitted. I've attended countless functions over the years, sometimes with dates arranged by my PR team. But none of them meant anything, Sophia. They were companions for events, not relationships. And what am I? Sophia asked the question that had haunted her all day, finally spoken aloud. The working-class girl who makes you feel connected to your humble beginnings. The one who reminds you of a simpler time before wealth and power. What happens when that novelty wears off? Alexander's face reflected hurt and frustration. Is that what you think? That you're some kind of novelty to me? I think we got caught up in reconnecting and rewriting past wrongs, Sophia said softly. But the reality is, your life is up there. She gestured vaguely toward the ceiling, indicating the world of wealth and privilege. And mine is down here. Maybe we should have left the past in the past. Alexander was silent for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but intense. 20 years ago, when I left Willow Creek on that scholarship, I promised myself I would become someone worthy of returning for you. Every step I took, every decision I made, was with the thought that someday I'd go back and find you. When your letters stopped coming, when I thought you had moved on, I pushed forward with nothing but ambition to fill the void you left. Sophia felt tears forming, but held them back. Alexander. Let me finish, he said gently. When I saw you in my building that day, it felt like the universe was giving us a second chance. Not because of nostalgia or guilt or some misguided attempt to recapture the past, but because in that moment I recognized the other half of myself, the half I've been missing for 20 years. He reached across the table, taking her hands in his despite her earlier retreat. I don't care about different worlds or what anyone thinks is appropriate. I care about you, the woman you were, the woman you are now. If that means changes in my life, in the company, and everything I've built, then so be it. None of it matters without you. Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks. It's not that simple. It can be, Alexander insisted. We make it simple by choosing each other, by refusing to let anyone or anything come between us again. Sophia wanted desperately to believe him, to trust that their connection was strong enough to overcome the practical obstacles, the social divisions, the expectations of others. But Ethan's words echoed in her mind, along with her own lifelong insecurities. I need time, she finally said, to think, to be sure this is right for both of us. Alexander's face fell, but he nodded slowly. Time, he repeated. How much time? I don't know, Sophia admitted. But I can't make this decision based on emotion alone. There's too much at stake. Okay, Alexander said, though the word clearly cost him. Take the time you need. But know this, I'll be waiting. However long it takes, whatever you decide, my feelings won't change. As they parted outside the coffee shop, their goodbye felt heavier than any they had shared before, weighted with unspoken fears, with the possibility that this separation might become permanent. Sophia watched Alexander walk away, her heart breaking even as her mind insisted she was doing the right thing. A week passed with no contact between them. Sophia threw herself into her work, staying late at the office, taking on additional projects to keep her mind occupied. To her surprise, Ethan left her alone, perhaps believing his tactics had worked, that she had ended things with Alexander for good. She hadn't seen Alexander in the building, and office gossip suggested he was away on business. The distance helped her think more clearly, to separate emotion from practicality, to weigh what she truly wanted against what might be best for everyone involved. On Friday afternoon, Sophia was working late again when Mark appeared at her desk. Don't you ever go home? He asked with a friendly smile. Sophia returned his smile wearily. Home is just an empty apartment. At least here I feel useful. Mark leaned against her desk. You know, for someone who supposedly just ended a relationship with the CEO, you don't seem very relieved. If anything, you look miserable. Is it that obvious? Sophia asked, surprised by his perception. Only to those of us who have made the same mistake, Mark said cryptically. Giving up something real because it seemed too complicated. Sophia's interest was piqued. What's your story? Mark sighed. Long-term relationship, different religious backgrounds, families opposed. We let it break us apart, thinking we were being practical mature. Biggest regret of my life. What happened? Sophia asked. She married someone her family approved of, has 2 kids now, and I'm still alone wondering what might have been if I'd had the courage to fight for what mattered. Mark gave her a meaningful look. Don't make my mistake, Sophia. Life's too short for practical heartbreak. His words stayed with Sophia as she finally headed home. The empty office echoed with the weight of decisions, unmade words unspoken. Outside, rain had begun to fall, matching her melancholy mood. As her bus made its way through the wet streets, Sophia found herself thinking about the past week, about the emptiness she had felt since walking away from Alexander. She had told herself she needed time to think. But perhaps what she really needed was the courage to believe that some connections were worth fighting for, regardless of the obstacles. By the time she reached her apartment building, Sophia had made a decision. She would call Alexander tomorrow, ask to meet, tell him that she was ready to try, really try, to build something together. Not because of their past, but because of who they were now, and who they could be to each other. As she entered the shabby lobby, soaked from the short walk from the bus stop, Sophia was startled to find Rita waiting for her. "There you are," Rita exclaimed. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "My phone died," Sophia explained. "What's wrong?" Rita's expression was urgent. "It's all over the news. Vaughn Industries, there's been some kind of scandal, accusations of fraud. They're saying the company might not survive." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "Alexander," she whispered. "Is he okay?" "I don't know," Rita admitted. "But from what I saw on the news, it's his brother who's at the center of it all." Rushing to Rita's apartment, they turned on the television. The business news was covering the story. Allegations that Ethan Vaughn has been falsifying reports, hiding losses, and misrepresenting the company's financial health to investors for years, the reporter said. Sources close to the company suggest CEO Alexander Vaughn may have been unaware of his brother's activities, but questions remain about how such extensive fraud could have occurred without his knowledge. Vaughn Industries' stock has plummeted, and analysts predict potential bankruptcy if the allegations prove true. Sophia watched in horror, her mind racing. Was this why Ethan had been so desperate to remove any distractions that might lead Alexander to look more closely at the company's operations? Had he been using Alexander's trust, his focus on building rather than monitoring to hide his own unethical activities? Without hesitation, Sophia grabbed her still damp coat. "I have to go to him." "In this weather at this hour," Rita protested. "Sophia, this is a corporate scandal. What can you possibly do?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "But I know he needs someone right now, someone who cares about him, not his money or his company or his reputation. He needs me." The trip to Alexander's penthouse took nearly an hour in the stormy weather taxis, unwilling to go far in the downpour. By the time Sophia arrived, she was drenched and shivering, but determined. The doorman recognized her from her previous visit, and after a quick call upstairs allowed her to go up. Her heart pounded as the elevator ascended, uncertainty mixing with her determination. What if Alexander didn't want to see her? What if he blamed her somehow for distracting him when his brother was undermining the company? The elevator doors opened directly into Alexander's penthouse. The space was dark, except for a single lamp in the living room, where Alexander sat alone, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his expression bleak. He looked up as she entered, surprise momentarily replacing the devastation on his face. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" "I saw the news," she said, simply moving toward him. "I needed to make sure you were okay." Alexander laughed bitterly. "Okay. My brother has been systematically defrauding investors for years. The company I built might not survive. Okay isn't anywhere on the spectrum of what I am right now." Sophia sat beside him on the couch, her wet clothes soaking into the expensive fabric. "I'm so sorry, Alexander." He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in her drenched appearance, the concern in her eyes. "You came all this way in this weather just to check on me." "Of course I did," Sophia said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I care about you." Alexander set down his glass. "I should have seen it. All the signs were there, Ethan's resistance to detailed audits, his insistence on handling certain accounts personally, his obsession with keeping up appearances." His voice broke slightly. "I trusted him completely. My own brother." "You couldn't have known," Sophia insisted. "He deliberately kept you in the dark." "A CEO should know everything about his company," Alexander said bitterly. "I was too focused on growth, on the future, on—" He looked at her. "On us." Sophia felt a stab of guilt. "Is that why you think he was so determined to end our relationship, because you might start paying closer attention to the company?" Alexander nodded slowly. "It makes sense now. Your presence made me see things differently, question things I had accepted for years. Ethan must have realized the threat that posed." They sat in silence for a moment, the rain beating against the windows, the only sound in the vast space. Finally, Sophia spoke. "What happens now?" Alexander sighed deeply. "Best case scenario, I cooperate fully with investigators, show that I was uninvolved, and try to rebuild from the wreckage. Worst case, criminal charges, bankruptcy, the end of everything I've built. And Ethan has already fled the country, apparently left me to face the consequences alone." The hurt in Alexander's voice was palpable. Sophia reached for his hand, entwining her fingers with his. "You're not alone." He looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. "I thought I'd lost you after our talk at the coffee shop when you said you needed time. I was afraid you'd decided we couldn't work." Sophia felt tears forming. "I was afraid, too afraid of not belonging in your world, of holding you back, of being a distraction from what mattered. But I was wrong, Alexander. What matters isn't your company or your status or the different worlds we come from. What matters is this." She squeezed his hand. "Us supporting each other, being there when it counts." A flicker of hope appeared in Alexander's eyes. "Does this mean you're willing to try despite everything? Because I have to warn you, my life is about to become very complicated, very public, and potentially very difficult." Sophia smiled gently. "My life has been complicated and difficult for 20 years. I'm not afraid of that. I'm only afraid of walking away from something real because I was too scared to believe in it." Alexander pulled her close, his arms encircling her, despite her wet clothes. "I don't deserve you," he murmured against her hair. "Probably not." Sophia agreed with a soft laugh. "But you've got me anyway." They stayed that way for a long time, holding each other, as the storm raged outside, a physical manifestation of the turbulence that lay ahead. But for the first time in years, perhaps in their entire lives, neither felt alone in facing whatever came next. The following months were indeed difficult. Investigators swarmed Vaughn Industries, examining every transaction, questioning every decision. Alexander spent endless hours with lawyers and auditors fighting to save what could be saved of the company he had built. Sophia stayed by his side through all of it, offering support, perspective, and occasionally much-needed distraction from the stress. She continued her work in customer service, refusing special treatment despite her relationship with Alexander becoming public knowledge. Slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. Ethan had indeed been manipulating financial records for years, hiding losses from bad investments, while presenting a picture of uninterrupted growth to the board and investors. His motives appeared to be a combination of pride, fear of disappointing his brother, and eventually desperation to cover his earlier deceptions. Though the scandal dealt a severe blow to Vaughn Industries Alexander's cooperation with authorities, and his obvious shock at his brother's actions helped mitigate some of the damage. The company survived, though significantly downsized and restructured. Through it all, Alexander and Sophia's relationship deepened, strengthened by adversity rather than broken by it. The artificial barriers between their worlds fell away in the face of real challenges that required them to see each other as they truly were, not as CEO and employee, not as the wealthy man and the struggling woman, but as two people committed to facing life together. 1 year after the scandal broke, on a quiet evening in Central Park, where they had spent so many hours talking during that difficult time, Alexander asked Sophia to marry him. "I don't have as much to offer as I once did," he said, holding a simple ring that cost a fraction of what he could have afforded in his previous life. "But I have more love for you than ever before." Sophia's eyes filled with happy tears as she slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You're perfect. And yes, 1,000 times yes." As they embraced under the stars, surrounded by the twinkling lights of the city, Sophia knew they had come full circle from young love in a small town to a deeper, more enduring partnership forged in the fires of adversity. Their story wasn't one of fairy tale perfection, but of real people overcoming real obstacles to find their way back to each other. And in the end, that was the most beautiful success story of all. As the years unfolded, the Hayes-Vaughn family grew stronger, their bond a testament to love, forgiveness, and the small moments that tie hearts together. From corporate battles to quiet evenings in the park, their journey showed that it's never too late to choose love, and that the greatest empires are built on the foundation of enduring relationships.